If your kid picks up an injury on the pitch this weekend, don't tell them to just ice it, pop an ibuprofen, and rest on the couch. I know that may sound like textbook medical advice, but research from the last 20 years or so shows that doing those three things will make the injury take longer to recover from. Today, I'll try to give you the modern scientific blueprint for the first 48 hours after an injury, so you don't have to repeat my mistakes. It's based on the cheesy name of Peace and Love, which is among the links in the description below if you want to have a look at it yourself. I am a sports physiotherapist, and nearly 20 years ago, before knowing anything physio related, I suffered my first severe knee injury playing football. And I had absolutely no clue what to do back then. I just blindly followed the advice I was given. Ice the knee, take some anti-inflammatory pills, and just rest. It wasn't terribly good advice then, and medical science has thankfully evolved massively since. Unfortunately, sideline culture hasn't changed all that much in the same time. Because I was completely in the dark and had no actual plan, I went back to working on my feet in a retail store way too early. The swelling refused to go down naturally, and I got frustrated, rushed back to playing football, and my knee buckled again, making it all worse. That cycle of pain and frustration is the reason I decided to become a sports physio in the first place. I wanted to make sure no parent or player ever had to navigate an injury in the dark like I did. The very first mistake I made happened immediately after the injury, and it had to do with ice. When your kid pulls an ankle or pulls a muscle, someone on the sideline will almost always hand you an ice pack. And ice is absolutely fine for immediate pain relief. Keep it on if it makes the injury less painful. But the mistake is thinking that the ice is the treatment. If you just apply ice and ignore protecting the injured joint, then your kid is losing out on valuable recovery time. Anecdotally, using compression that is quite tight has been helpful on the pitch for the injured players I have treated, but there is very little good research to back up the use of either ice, compression, or elevation. That's not to say that we shouldn't do any of those things, but it does mean that it might not be as critical as we previously have thought. The ice is just the icing on the cake, as it were, to numb the pain. The second mistake I made happened the minute I got home. As parents, our immediate instinct is to take away our kids' pain, so we opened their medicine cabinet. I was told to take ibuprofen, and it was completely unnecessary at best, and delayed the healing process quite a bit at worst. The research has shifted on this. Avoid anti-inflammatories in the first few days. Swelling is not the enemy, it's the biological signal that tells the body's construction crew to arrive and to start rebuilding the tissue. If you use anti-inflammatories to artificially hide the pain, you might be firing the construction crew. You hit the pause button on the healing process. When you artificially numb the pain with those pills, kids, and let's be honest, grown-ups as well, tend to overdo things, which is exactly why I thought I was fine to go back to my retail job, standing on feet for hours on end. If your kid is in pain, you can use ice or painkillers like paracetamol instead of anti-inflammatory pills. Just be mindful of not overdoing it and check with a doctor if necessary. The third mistake I made was how I handled the next few days. The old school advice is to wrap the kid in bubble wrap and tell him to just rest. But complete rest may be exactly why my knee buckled a second time. If your kid pulls a quad or a hamstring, or like me, sprains or tears their knee or ankle ligament, and they lie still on the couch for a week, their muscles shrink quite drastically. That means that muscle strength and crucially explosiveness is reduced, and that happens surprisingly fast. You do not want to bubble wrap them, you want to use active loading. Every kid is different, but this generally means doing active range of motion or gentle static muscle contractions. We want them using their body within reasonable limits to promote tissue healing and recovery as soon as possible. Obviously, don't overdo it. Again, please see a healthcare professional to help out your kid in the best possible manner. The rule of thumb you need to remember is that discomfort can be okay. Kids do not need to be completely pain-free to start moving. As long as the movement isn't actively making the sharp pain worse, and it's not making the swelling balloon up, they should be moving it. Not all the time, again, within reason. The days of throwing an ice pack on a leg, giving your kid an anti-inflammatory pill to take, and then telling them to lie still on the couch should be over. Protect the injured site if necessary. Avoid the anti-inflammatories so the construction crew can work. And keep the tissue healing with active loading. Now, because every single injury is different, there is no universal protocol here. This video is your 48-hour survival guide. Your very next step the morning after the injury should be to book an appointment with a sports physio or some other healthcare professional who can assess and create a specific progressive loading plan tailored to your kid's exact injury. Once they've done that rehab, how do you know when they're actually ready to step back onto the pitch? It shouldn't be based on a calendar date. Check out the video here and I'll give you an idea of the benchmarks they need to pass before they're officially cleared to play. Thanks for watching. See you next time.